Hey guys, and welcome back to another week of astrology. Today we're going to be looking at the astrology of July 12th into the 18th of 2021. My name is David from Haunted Cerebral Astrology. Thanks for being here. Thanks for all your support, liking, commenting, and subscribing. It all means a lot to me, and it goes a long way. So just taking an overall look at this week, I think it's a bit of a break from the last weeks, especially since eclipse season is over and we're kind of moving away now from the Saturn-Uranus conjunction, like they're over 3 degrees apart now at least. And, with the Mars opposition and activating things and then Venus activating things, I think we're moving into a bit more manageable territory. There are going to be some big transits coming up in the next couple weeks, but overall, it's looking pretty decent comparably. And this week, it's mostly lunar transits. So kind of establishing, getting our footing on what kind of the new moon in Cancer was all about. And then, where do we go forward from there? And I think today what's nice, we have the Mercury Jupiter trine. So it's pretty sweet. And then tomorrow we have the Venus Mars conjunction in Leo. So there's going to be some fresh starts to things, some exciting things, some new efforts, some new pursuits, some new passions. So let's kind of break that down. And also, if you didn't check out my new electional astrology videos, I'm going to do those once a week, just kind of sharing a few of the auspicious dates and times that I see in the astrology, and the ones that I'm kind of be probably using in my week as well for any kinds of things that I'm working on. So if you haven't checked that out, go check out my other videos because you may be into that if you're into like choosing lucky times to do stuff. Anyway, so let's just look at the astrology now. Okay. Let me bring that up. So, like I said, kind of this week, today we have that Mercury Jupiter trine. It's nice. And then the Venus Mars conjunction tomorrow, Thursday, Wednesday, Thursday is going to be pretty spaced out, kind of dominated by that Sun Neptune trine. And then by the end of the week, when the moon moves into Scorpio, things get a little bit, intense when it kind of leads up to the Sun Pluto opposition that basically closes the week. And I think is a kind of a cautionary if we're kind of getting too zealous about some of the actions going on in our lives at this time. So I'll try and kind of break all that stuff down one thing at a time as usual. And we'll go from there. Sorry for all the mixing around. It's a bit of a funny day for me. I think that the Mercury Jupiter trine is really spacing me out. So, okay, so let's see if I can make this happen. So starting off the day, Monday, July 12th, basically what's kind of flavoring the morning or, wherever you are, but basically what was kind of flavoring things, I think leading into Monday was that the moon is going to activate the Uranus-Saturn dynamic with that square. That's still kind of it's getting out of an engagement basically, but it's on its way out. So the moon's kind of bringing that closer to home, bringing it closer into our everyday lives. So if you didn't know what that whole square was about for you, the moon's going to bring it in. It's going to translate that light and reactivate the Saturn-Uranus square. So basically that kind of flavors what's going on in the morning. And then later on, the moon just keeps going closer and then makes those conjunctions to Venus and Mars, which are, even though they're not exact conjunction, they're basically under 1 degree with one another. So in my opinion, they're already in a conjunction. They're in an adherence with one another. So that conjunction, like I said, it's kind of flavoring the week. So it's kind of an interesting day on Monday. And I think the moon is just kind of translating the light from that Saturn Uranus dynamic into whatever kind of new fresh starts are going on in whatever part of the life that we have Leo in. So with that conjunction between Venus and Mars. And it's bringing it closer to home. This can also bring us closer to what that whole dynamic is bringing up in our lives in terms of with relationships and efforts, missions and accomplishments, and also whatever aesthetics and creative pursuits we have going on with that conjunction. And it may like reveal to us, what relationships we do want in our life, which ones we don't, what we know is good for us, what we know is not, who's allowed in, who do we want taken out. And just kind of getting closer to integrating into more authentic relationships, to efforts, to desires, who's doing things for us versus who are we doing things for? What are we willing to let go of, reject versus what do we want to attract into our lives and let go of? Or sorry, let in. What do we want to let in versus not? So I think as the moon kind of brings that closer to home, it's like we're really going to like feel that. Like, what does that mean to us? It may have been like through the morning or whatever, wherever you are, whatever time was leading up to this. So by the way, if you don't know where I am based, I'm based in Berlin, Germany. So I'm like, can't even speak today. This is what happens when all the planets are in water signs, just giving up on talking. Okay, so anyway, so where was I? Yeah. So anyway, so the moon is moving through that conjunction. And I think that's just like bringing closer to home what that whole square is about. Who do we want in our life? Who do we know is good for us? And what kind of serious things are happening? What disruptive things are happening? And then how that integrates into what we want, what we don't want in our lives. So this is about getting acknowledged as well on some level. Like maybe somebody out there is letting us know like how much they appreciate what we're doing. And this is like a chance for us to be seen on some level, getting accepted for that too, getting accepted for our creativity, for our authenticity, for what we do in a very showy and very robust and prideful way on some level, with everything being in that sun sign Leo. I think though that the caution is kind of the watch out for letting, on some level our impatience and our lust go a bit out of control. If we're like kind of letting ourselves get a bit too lusty, this could lead us into some dangerous territory. And that I think is going to lead through the whole week, especially if whatever decision or whatever kind of new beginning we decide to engage with the Venus-Mars conjunction, if that takes us into kind of kind of a tricky situation, like let's say we get involved in an affair of some kind, this week could become more complicated than we need it to be rather than just some fun. But otherwise, I think Monday night could be a really great night to go on a date or to have some fun on some level. There's definitely a lot of passion in the next 24 hours. So if you can use that for something, have fun with it. I think it's a good transit for all that with the moon moving through that. And then basically that's kind of all that takes place with the moon through the day. But then, Mercury moves into that exact trine with Jupiter. It's around the end of the day here in Germany, but wherever you are, it's going to lead into that. And I think that, this is really cool because it's the first like friendly transit that these two planets have made with each other since April, when there was the sextile, when Mercury was in Aries. And actually Jupiter was in Aquarius. So it was actually very different vibes. These two planets would have been in the signs of the malefics. So now that Jupiter is in its own domicile, also Mercury's in the moon sign. So it's a little bit more interesting. It's a little more sensitive. It's a little more emotional. There's a bit more, I think this is also reinforcing what I was getting at with the passion. There's a bit more eroticism and intimacy for exchanges in general. Maybe we're sending messages on intimate and more erotic levels on some level. And I think like, This is a good way for us to kind of make bigger some of the things that we have intimate in our lives, maybe some of the more private things in our lives. If we want to share something that's more about our bodies, more about something that's private and personal, and bring it out into the bigger sphere, this is kind of a good transit for that in general. But on a normal level, I mean, Mercury and Jupiter are kind of opposites in terms of each other. Jupiter wants to unify and make bigger and bring a lot of trust and hope into things, and Mercury wants to pick things apart, wants to see the reasons behind everything, doesn't want to just gonna act on faith, wants to have justifications and reasons behind all sorts of decisions. Like it's more scientific versus like more spiritual on some level. So, but I think it's cool. I mean, Mercury's now out of Gemini. Mercury is also using now the moon's resources, being in a lunar sign. The moon's also in Leo. So there's this co-presence between, so there's this relationship between the moon and the sun right now, where they're in each other's signs. And so there is some access to the resources that Mercury can use. It's able to like do things. It's able to see things more clearly, able to know things and understand things and think about things in ways that are more authentic to ourselves and more truthful to what we want to do and where we're at. And I think it's just emphasizing again that conjunction that's building up with Venus and Mars. So maybe we can reflect on our feelings more easily, be more instinctual with what our thinking, and adapt to fluctuations in more instinctive ways. Both the moon and Mercury are fluctuating planets. They're constantly changing to what the other things around them. They're more environmental and so on. I mean, the moon's more environmental, reflecting things, and Mercury's like adapting and being flexible, trying to navigate through everything. So with those two forces kind of now working together on some level, there's going to be more exchanges that may be done in more comfortable manners. So I think on some level also, Monday is a good day for compliments and exchanging, compassionate messages. Although on another note, it may also just be with this trine to Jupiter, it could be a good time to deal with any authorities, pay any tickets you got, or just to have a more understanding reason behind maybe some of the laws in the world, some of the more justice oriented things, some of the reasons why authorities are doing things. And Mercury may just help us to have more of an emotional touching stone with what's going on there. So that's kind of it for Monday. So let's just go into Tuesday. So Tuesday morning, not much going on. Moon doesn't make any signs before doesn't make any more aspects for leaving Leo. And then when it goes into Virgo, it's going to have that mutual reception now, not with the sun, but now with Mercury. So it kind of continues this kind of what's going on in Cancer. So I think before with the moon having mutual reception with sun, there was a way in which, our passions and our feelings were able to integrate, and Mercury could kind of figure some things out with that. But now that now that the moon has moved into Virgo, it's kind of shifted that energy to make it, change it and bring it more into where new things need attention, where things on an intimate level need attention, but where we need to figure things out and be more meticulous with things. So, there's a good collaboration, a good cooperation. What we feel is now kind of what we know, what we're learning is what we're feeling. This is also kind of like a click moment where things just seem to start fitting into place on some level. I like to think of it like the square blocks are fitting into the square holes. The circle blocks are fitting into the circle holes. So there's a high level of like cognitive sensitivity and ability to have like good judgment and discernment right now, where things are kind of like in order on some level. And I think that kind of is further emphasized by the opposition that the moon is going to make to Jupiter. And then it also, not only is it in mutual reception with Mercury, but then the moon also makes a nice sextile to Mercury. So it's nice. I mean, I think this is really like getting a good feeling about where we're at with things, what we're doing in terms of things, that things are kind of working, and we can start to see the other side of where the bigger picture is going. Like, again, I think whenever the moon has gone through Virgo the last months, while Jupiter has been in Pisces, every single transit, I think that the moon makes that opposition to Jupiter, it's like, okay, we're seeing more where the plan is not adding up right now, but now we're kind of at this point where like Jupiter is getting ready to move back into Aquarius, so maybe we're a bit more realistic about how that expansion has taken place over the last months, and being in this good mutual reception with Mercury, which just made that trine to Jupiter. I think it's like, it's less about like seeing all the flaws and how things are not working to our expectations of things, but being more in terms of being more like realistic with things and being more okay with that, and knowing that we can like do some things with that, rather than seeing what we can do rather than what we can't do. And I think that's what this kind of transit is emphasizing. Also, like with Mercury now being in the exaltation of Jupiter, it's like the context of the reality and the circumstance of what that expansion has been about for the last months is now seen more clearly. We can understand what it is. We can do something with it. We don't have to just pick it apart. We can just be like, okay, that's what it really was. It's not over yet. There's more to be had in the future. And whatever communications are going on about that bigger picture right now are leading up to something later. It's not about now. And on some level, we can feel okay with that. We can work with that rather than just see all the like disappointments in it on some level. So I think that's a good thing. And that kind of just like kind of leads us right into the Venus Mars conjunction, which I think is really cool. So yeah, fresh starts, relationships and efforts and sexuality, dealing with frustrations in more sensual ways. I think this is like in general a very sexual transit. This is the classic masculine feminine energies coming together in a bodily union. They're like joining together and in the same sign, in the same degree, in the same bounds. So they're actually like in bed together on some level, right? So, and in ancient astrology, they thought of the conjunction as a very sexual union between the bodies of the planets, like they merge and become one. So we could see our efforts and our relationships kind of joining together, our sexualities and our frustrations suddenly like making sense together. Like it's like dealing with sexual frustration in a very cohesive manner, in a very performative manner, in a very authentic way, being in Leo. So, this is like maybe some sort of sexual endeavor, kind of getting back together with somebody who you had a very sexual experience with in the past, maybe just feeling really good about that if you do, or it's with whatever relationships you're in now. Doesn't need to be some affair that you want to start on some level. It could also just be what relationships are really developing now. And this kind of like joins that together in a very passionate and, loving, but also exciting way. Could be a potential on some level for some of us to have our pride wounded. So if we are expecting some sort of like sexual result from things and don't get that, just let it go. It's not the end of the world just because you didn't get, your libido, exercised on some level. Just enjoy the potentiality of the fun of this. It's not really a transit to take too seriously. I think it's one to like have some fun, be authentic with it, be loyal to whatever you're more intimate with, especially with the sun still being in Leo, being in Cancer. We want to be more authentic to what feels really safe, feels secure, feels good to us, and that we're able to see as a part of the bigger picture for us too, being with that mutual reception between Moon and Cancer. So all the planets right now are kind of integrating with each other, and I think that conjunction with Venus and Mars is showing where there's that fun to be had, where there's that new beginning to be had, where things can be really creative, and also our efforts can join together with our pleasures and all these kinds of things. So if you do get wounded on some level, try to just see that people are having fun right now. It's time to have a bit of fun. It's the middle of summer, even if things are not like perfect right now, and it's still not like the normal that we're all used to from the past. If some of us were expecting for things to go back to the way they were pre-COVID or whatever like that, just try to have fun with what is available now, because we're going to really want to take the break we can get right now, because later in the year, there's going to be some really difficult things happening with the astrology. And I think it's a good chance for us to make use of what is actually happening right now. Later in the year too, there's going to be the Venus retrograde, and that's going to be all about the relationships between Venus and Mars, because they're going to be together for a while. So I think right now is a good chance for us to kind of have fun with it rather than be so serious with it. So let go of your pride a little bit if you can. Just be open to enjoying what's happening. There's a chance for fun, happiness, excitement, validation, things like that. So enjoy it. That's what I think is the best option. Okay, so that's basically Tuesday. So let's go into Wednesday. Moon just keeps going through Virgo anyway. And then Wednesday and Thursday are a bit kind of funny days. I mean, basically what happens is that the moon will make that square to the nodes, and it's heading like the last transits of moon going through Virgo and heading towards the south node. Things are decreasing. Even though the moon is increasing, things are also decreasing at the same time, and the moon's going to be engaging also with Neptune this in the next 24 hours too. And I think that engagement with Neptune that the sun is also going to be making in the next 24 hours, it's just making Wednesday and Thursday very dreamy and otherworldly. Also kind of being lost in whatever dream, especially if something exciting and pleasure filled happened the night before with the Mars and Venus conjunction. I think that like Wednesday and Thursday, we might just be a little bit like lost in how good that was and how much fun we're having, and that things are just feeling so good right now. And maybe that's okay. And maybe we can be a bit lost in the otherworldliness. But, moon is also making moon then kind of moves forward and then makes that trine to Uranus later in the morning here. But wherever you are, I mean, it's going to make that trine later to Uranus. So don't be surprised. So it could be also when we get some sort of pleasant surprises, something unexpected happens, something that is on some level like related to where we're at in terms of what we're seeing in terms of the plan versus where we're at, and realistically something that we're figuring out on intimate level, something that we felt and started from the day before with the conjunction there. So it could be that some sort of innovation or interesting change takes place and changes the pace of things. The moon is also then moving into the next day into the sextile with the sun. So we may feel on some level we're on our course on some level, on plan, things are going forward and then with the trine to Uranus, I think it's like maybe there have been unsettled things with where we want things to be more stable and secure, but maybe at this time some of those things that aren't so stable and secure are like supporting us in where we're at and what we're figuring out and what we're thinking and what we're feeling and what we want to try to figure out where it is now versus where we want to go later. So yeah, and then moon is then also preparing, I think, as well as it's through Virgo for that Neptune opposition tomorrow. So it could be, I think in just general, like Wednesday into Thursday, kind of funny days. We may just be feeling fine in general and a bit checked out, not really up for doing much. So don't be surprised if you don't really have like much steam to use this week, especially Wednesday, Thursday. So that's basically it for Wednesday. So we can just go into, I mean, moon just keeps going through Virgo. And then, so let's do Thursday. Basically, first thing, moon makes that sextile to the sun while the sun is like engaging to the trine to Neptune. And then the moon also is going to make an opposition there. So kind of an interesting collaboration going on. Moon makes that opposition to Neptune. Maybe we just get the clear picture on fantasies, on dreams, things like I said before, it's like with the opposition to Jupiter, where it's like, okay, maybe some of the expectations and bigger picture things, some of the expansions of things, we're expecting more from them now, but every single transit of the moon through Virgo has kind of revealed where it's not adding up to exactly what we are dreaming of and what were our visions of things, and where we want to get more redemption and more emotional release from things. So now I think with the Virgo transit of the moon, just because it has that mutual reception with Mercury, it's able to be more understanding of things, a bit more compassionate with things not adding up exactly to plan or whatever. So we just feel, and I think with the opposition to Neptune, it's just like, okay, we don't feel as delusional. And that sextile to the sun, I think, is just translating into that opposition of moon to Neptune, because we're on plan on some course, we're sticking to the plan, even if we just got through all that experience of the eclipses and the squares, the Saturn Uranus square, and the Mars transits through Cancer, and then also Leo. So it's like, a lot of shit just like went down. So it's like, if we could just stick to the basics of our plan, if we just got through the basics of it through all that, we're doing pretty good, in my opinion. So I think with that sextile to the sun, it's like we can feel that, we're on some sort of course. It doesn't have to be picture perfect, but we're on some sort of course. And at least we stuck to the basics if we could, if that's our best chance of keeping it going. So I think that's nice, especially kind of leading up to then the sun moving into the trine with Neptune, which happens a little bit later as moon also makes the trine to Pluto. So might just focus more on the Neptune sun transit, but I think it kind of relates a bit to, on some level, what's happening to the moon, to the sun later when it makes that opposition to Pluto later in the week. But anyway, so, this is kind of like when I think of like sun trine to Neptune, as well as moon trine to Pluto, this is like just completely wading your body into dark water and just being totally free with that, and not having fear, not being afraid of what's underneath the surface. It's like taking a dive into warm waters, allowing the day to drench itself inside of you and around. It's like letting it's like becoming aware of the environment as a thing itself, and that it is in you and it's also out of you at the same time, and that you are a part of it, you and the environment. There's no differentiation, actually. There's a non-dualism going on there, that you and the environment are one and the same. You and the universe are one and the same. When you move, the universe moves. When the universe moves, you move, that kind of thing. So, like this is like putting your whole body into a hot tub at the spa, fully embracing, fully submerged. If you're going to the beach this day, cook in the water as well as the sun. I think that's what would be kind of cool. Cook with the depthness, and cook with let yourself be a bit free of the darkness for a bit, and just kind of dissolve into whatever the day has to offer you on some easy and freeing and kind of letting the vastness of things encompass the day for you, and wherever you are in the plan right now, and being okay with that, being a bit free from the stresses and burdens of how difficult it is to live, as well as keep up with all the challenges of every day. This also, to me, looks like a good transit to go into a movie cinema, to go into the cinema. In some places, cinemas are now open again. So if you can enjoy that, I would highly recommend it, especially if it's a hot day and there's air conditioning inside, you might get a lot out of that. So yeah, and then I think also in general, any kind of good transit to Neptune is a good one, is a good day to engage with spirituality and kind of your spiritual practice. If you are engaging in a spiritual practice with the sun trine to Neptune, this is like where a critical awareness could become really open to what I was talking about before, this non-dualism between the self and the world around you, between the body and mind, that the body and mind are one. There's no difference between the two. They are actually one and the same. The body and the mind are together. And that this consciousness is not the mind, that this consciousness is something beyond it. And maybe for some of us, this could be a chance where we engage with that a little bit more. So moving past the what's called like the city gates of thought and coming into the expanse of consciousness and what that is and who it is, who is the master behind this body and mind, who is the one listening when you're not even there, right? So think about when somebody is in near their deathbed, like when they're just about to die, people have these near-death experiences. For instance, I've had a near-death experience, and when you're in that experience, it's like there's darkness all around, or you're very far away, or you're in the room, but you're not in your body anymore, and you're conscious of all the things happening, but you're not necessarily in your body anymore. It's also the same with people. I think they say that people who are in a coma, even though physically to others we may not seem like the person's there, but on a consciousness level they are aware on many levels about what is going on, completely aware even. Anyway, so that's kind of it for Virgo transit of the moon. And then the moon moves into Libra and bringing a new perspective to things, I think, as the energy shifts, seeing the balance, coming back a bit more to reality after that funny, it was like a funny Virgo transit for the moon, where it's like on one point, yes, we're figuring things out and we have this ability to cognitively see the way things work and to work with them and stuff like that. But because Mercury's in a lunar sign, it's a bit more dreamy, it's a bit more intuitive rather than rational. And I think that as the moon moves into Libra, then we're kind of coming back into a bit more balance of rationality. That's a little bit more distanced from that water sign energy and more mutable energy. Now there's something more about being more action oriented, being more decision making oriented, now that we're in tropical cardinal signs with the moon. And the moon then also, as soon as it goes into Libra, is going to start making a sign-based square to the sun and Mercury. So already we're kind of moving into that first quarter moon vibes. So maybe we're starting to see some of the challenges of what we started and initiated with the new moon in Cancer. If we started a relationship, this is where some of the more challenges, the more difficult conversations have to come up, some of the compromises we have to make in order for that new beginning to be nurtured and to mature. So this is where there's kind of a make or break section here with every first quarter moon. And so, coming a bit back into reality on some level, especially if some of us have been checked out for the last 24 hours with all that Neptune and all that Neptune and Pisces energy going on, all that water sign. It's just like, whoa, spaced out. And so I think as the moon moves into Libra, it's like, okay, now we got to kind of come back to what is going on in these relationships we're in right now? Who are the people that are in our lives, and what have we just let in there? And is that a good thing? I don't know. So let's figure that out. So on one level, because of the square to Mercury, it's not such a great time to communicate or send out really provocative messages, I think. especially with the with Mercury being in that sensitive sign. I think like messages may be received in the wrong way, especially if we're trying to just do something to bring back the balance. If we're like, oh, well, the balance is off, I got to do something immediately. Take your time with it. Try to use your judgment, evaluate, discern, and be objective about things. Moon's now in the exaltation of Saturn. So we really want to bring the context of whatever kind of potentialities, about whatever new structures are going on, about some of the seriousness of what's going on in our lives and in the world. It's a good time to be more discerning about things and in our reality and in where we're at in that day. And in our relationships as well, because who we're letting into our lives right now, if they're not a part of where we are building things and where we're heading towards things and where we want to make where we want to build, where we want to see things be nurtured and expanded in 2022, 2023, then we may be kind of overwhelming ourselves, which is not necessarily a wrong thing. It's nothing wrong with that. It's just, if we want to bring more peace of mind into our daily lives, this could be the moon going through Venus right now, through Libra right now, is a good chance for us to maybe bring back that balance of serenity and peace of mind if it's necessary. So it could be a bit of a contrast to where our minds are at too, right? So with that square to Mercury that the moon's building up to, it may just be that where we're feeling versus where we're exchanging things are not really on the same page. So maybe we're not feeling like, some of the relationships we just started in or let into our lives are going to be necessarily good for us, or where our minds can keep up with them on some level. So it could be a good day to check in with ourselves and where we're at. And I think a good question in general, this is something I ask myself too, if I'm if I'm feeling a bit lost, I just ask myself, where am I right now? What am I doing right now? And usually if I can check in with those questions, I can bring things back to the present and kind of reground myself and re-engage with where I'm at in an embodied way. So that's it for Thursday. Let's do Friday. Okay, so like I said, moon just basically moves into that square with Mercury. So yeah, I think pieces are being put together now, but now we can only figure out that out by doing something about it. So we have to do something. We learn by doing right now. And it's like, where can we modify things? Where can we compromise things? Where can we evaluate and make decisions that are objectively based, using our minds to see the truth and adjust to what we can find, so that we can find a solution that is both fair and just. Did we make a funny and dangerous decision based in lust during the Venus-Mars conjunction? And now we have to make things good again on some level, or we have to have that difficult conversation that we don't necessarily want to have. It's time to bring things back to reality a bit, back to where feelings align with principles, right? And I think that the only real other aspect that happens this day, and which really emphasizes it, because, like I said, the moon is in the exaltation of Saturn, is that then moon moves into a trine with Saturn. So this just reinforces whatever conversations needed to happen. And I think that Saturn is there to reassure us that whatever decisions we're making right now are the right decisions. Especially if they're not easy decisions. Saturn is going to reward us if we're willing to make those tough decisions, right? So if we're not making easy decisions right now, but we are making the right decisions right now, what is right to each of us, not just right on a ideal level, right? It's like, what is right to each of us, since it's the moon and Saturn engaging, but what is right to where our principles are set, since Saturn is going to test our principles. And what is best for each of us on the long term. We can decide what is best for things in terms of the future and where we're going, with Saturn being in its masculine air sign, about potentiality, about the past versus the future, about what is going to be working towards somewhere where we are imagining things later, not just like having a vision about it, but actually trying to do things now about where they can actually end up there. So maybe there's some harshness to that. Sometimes some of our motivations can come from fear and resentments on some level. But if we're willing to at least admit to that and take responsibility for that and keep our side of the street clean, we can at least make those decisions now that will help us to get back to a place where we're free of resentment, we're free of being fearful of the future. We can have faith in the future. And I think with Jupiter heading back to Aquarius, it's all about that. It's all about replacing fear with faith, replacing anger with love, and resentment with acceptance. So I think with that trine to Saturn, it's like, okay, we have to do the work in order to get the serenity, right? It's not just going to come out of thin air. We have to take action. So I think it's good to ask ourselves again, like, where are we at? What am I doing now? How is this best for the plan? And taking responsible turns with things because we know how to preserve them for the future. That being said, it could also be very like reaping what you sow type of vibes. So it may be that, you get that gentle, contact with someone who's like, listen, you're not living up to your authenticness. You're not living up to your authenticness right now. And I can say that just because of the moon being in Venus's sign, whereas the moon, whereas Venus is still in the sun sign, about, authenticity and loyalty and pride and doing things out of the good rather than doing things just to make ourselves feel better. So, this is kind of like I said, it's one of those transits where it's going to help us because the decisions we're making, and if they're not the ones that, are going to bring us all this pleasure in our lives, they're going to be the decisions that we can make that are going to be necessary decisions so that we can like handle shit in the future. So yeah, maybe just try and do that stuff where you got to like handle it now. And that's kind of it for Friday. So let's just go into Saturday. And just keeps going through Libra. And then Saturday is a little bit more complex. First of all, before Moon leaves Libra, it's going to make this double sextile to Venus and Mars. So I think on some level we can feel good about what happened, even if it kind of like set us in a funny place. But I don't think it's going to be that for everybody. But I think this is where we can kind of feel good about whatever happened with the conjunction there. There's a way in which we can, modify things now. We got more in touch with where Saturn's at in our lives. We got more in touch with the responsibilities we have to take, the decisions, the conversations that need to happen. And with this sextile there, it could be like, this is actually maybe a good time to engage with that. If we had to figure something out with the square to Mercury and the trine to Saturn, something we had to figure out maybe internally and integrate that internally with the moon translating it. Now that the moon's translating it back to Venus and Mars in that inferior sextile. So it's like, okay, what was kind of learned through Mercury kind of sending, giving its opinion and also its what it's figured out in terms of where we're feeling and where we need security and things like that. And then where have we kind of translated that to the future and to our responsibilities and to our potentials for where things are going. And then now we're kind of translating that back to whatever situation occurred to Monday, Tuesday, right? So, this is a good way to use that collaboration between Mars and Venus. It's a good day to modify things if we need to kind of, especially before the moon loses dignity when it goes into Scorpio. So if we haven't had the conversation yet, or we haven't like recalibrated things before it could be too late, so to speak, now would be a good time to do it. In general, I think, like I was saying before, this week is it's kind of an interesting prelude to the Venus retrograde at the end of the year. During that retrograde, Venus and Mars will be in a co-presence conjunction. Basically, they'll be in very close degree-based engagement, adherence with one another, and in co-presence, so in the same sign, for I think like a month next year, the beginning of the year. That's basically going to be flavoring 2022's beginning. So, those two forces are going to need to work together regardless of if they want to or not. And they're going to be in Saturn ruled signs. So it's all going to be about like hard work, responsibility, contemplation, sense of impermanence, knowing that things are not going to last forever, that there is like an end of the road to things, but that end of the road always leads to a new beginning. So, wherever we're at now, and where we know we're going to end up then, whatever's going on now, it's going to be related to then. So, whatever decisions we want to make now towards that potentiality is important for us to engage with now, and to try to apply our principles, to practice living in them, and to see where that's going and where that's leading to, and how we can be more harmonized and nurtured moving forward. So, like I said, so we can maintain greater sense of peace of mind. And then other than that, then the moon, before it leaves Libra, then it's, it's going to square Sun and Pluto pretty much. I mean, the Sun hasn't made the exact degree opposition to Pluto, but it's already in the same degree. So it's already in opposition to Pluto. So, it's a first quarter moon. This is also what I was saying. It's kind of emphasizing all those kind of hard decisions, hard kind of push throughs that I was talking about earlier. There's a need to push forward with things, whatever was started with the new moon on Saturday. So, what is getting a fresh start that really needs to be nurtured now, really needs to have that balance in order to grow, needs to have more settled soil in order for the roots to take hold. This is a challenging point where we're either going to be able to overcome it, or, it's not going to work out, and it could hurt, especially with that engagement to Pluto. It could be something quite cathartic, and not necessarily in a way we want. It could be really intense. And this might be our first kind of getting a feel for that. And I think with the opposition of Sun to Pluto, it's kind of shining, both the lights are directing rays over some sort of darkness in the distance, right? And it's in Capricorn, which is where the Venus retrograde is going to be at the end of the year. And if we can think about what was going on at the last Venus retrograde in Gemini, there was a lot of craziness going on. That was the beginning of the pandemic. Things were getting locked down. Then simultaneously, there was a big civil rights upheaval with the death of George Floyd, and there was a lot of other chaos going on in the world too. But it was a very time where people were just fed up and simultaneously had to all of a sudden follow the rules at the same time, and it was not easy for everyone, right? So I think this is giving us a prelude to that. The lights are shining onto that situation, while the moon is also in a Venus ruled sign, and it's coming out, it's separating from the engagement to Venus. So it's translating what's going on now to what's to come. So then the moon then keeps going, doesn't make any more aspects until it moves into Scorpio, loses dignity. Things just become a bit more vigilant, vulnerable, a bit more cautious as usual when it goes into Scorpio, especially since the last transits with that whole Saturn. It's going to re-engage the Saturn-Uranus dynamic. Kind of happens, like I said, it's happening basically at the same time as Sun moves into that opposition to Pluto. Pluto doesn't rule Scorpio. Mars rules Scorpio, but it's still interesting. There's danger increasing on some level. This is getting closer. This is like in the game, you know, like you're getting closer to the final boss, right? But you still have to have the semi-boss before you can get to the real boss, right? Or like, I don't know if any of you played Zelda, but it's like when you fight Ganon, you have to like defeat Ganondorf and then Ganon. So there's like this transformation of the same boss. And somehow I kind of feel like this is preluding to something like that. So the moon also trines with Jupiter as soon as it moves to Scorpio. I mean, always a trine to Jupiter is going to be good, especially while Jupiter's in domicile. But somehow I think because they're in these like water signs and, you know, moon's in this like kind of dark, kind of like goth sign, and Mars is in Leo. So there's something very like showing off my tattoos kind of thing. And like Jupiter's just kind of like, yeah, do it. Yeah, that's going to be fun. You know, to screw the world kind of thing. And like, I think it's like kind of camaraderie and this complacency of like, fuck it, let's just do it. And this is kind of like dealing maybe also difficult, hard truths, because we need the truth to kind of deal. We can't deal with anything dark and hard unless we have the truth about it. I mean, otherwise it's just total fear in our head. So Jupiter is actually doing us a favor. Maybe it's like telling us the truth. But doesn't mean that it's not going to be difficult. Anyway, so that's Saturday. Let's go into Sunday. So yeah, Sunday is going to be the most challenging day of the week. That's just because it opens up with the Sun Pluto opposition. So not exactly very nice transit. Opposites collide. Oppositions are all about this vying for power. You know, there are tensions of two forces either complementing or tearing each other apart. Could be a constructive way to see and deal with the danger and darkness of what's to come or what's on the horizon, but it doesn't mean it's easy. It doesn't mean it's easy. It's a good time to listen to what we do not feel comfortable about, especially with the moon being in Scorpio, where it's not very comfortable. We're not really feeling so good about what our feelings are telling us, but our feelings are not lying right now because it's got that trine to Jupiter. So things are changing sides, maybe from darkness to light or light to darkness. It's the middle of the summer too. So like maybe we're seeing what winter is going to be like. What is winter of 2021, 2022 going to be all about? And with the sun in that opposition to Pluto, right in the sign of the winter solstice, this is like getting a picture of that. Sun's being thrown into Pluto's psychosis a little bit. So there could be some madness, bit of confusion. Sun represents light and warmth, and Pluto is like a darkness vibe. It's like kind of secretive and potentials. It's things that are like under the carpet you don't want to look at, but they're there. You're going to have to deal with them at some point. And with the sun making that opposition, it's like, okay, now I'm seeing it. Now I got to deal with it on some level. So there's a possibility that the dark secrets may be seen. And there's no illusions about this. So for me, it really reminds me of what a lot of the last transits to Pluto have been about. With the Venus opposition, there was that destruction of the buildings in Miami, I think. And then some of the moon and Mars transits to Pluto have been all about the, all the children being found underneath these residential schools in Canada. So there's something dark on the horizon with Pluto. And I think that with the sun making that opposition, it's either going to bring that into our realization. We're going to become aware of what that is more clearly. So just be prepared for that. And then the moon will make that trine now instead to Mercury, while also making a square to Saturn. So it could be a better time to communicate. That said, communications are coming from all the baggage in the last 24 hours. So just be aware that your feelings are raw, rough, real, harsh, vulnerable. So if you need to share that, do it, but just be aware that maybe you're revealing a bit too much. The moon's then, of course, like I said, activating once more the Saturn-Uranus thing. So it's really like carrying over maybe whatever message we want to translate. But if we decided to kind of say something that really didn't need to be said to people we don't even know, like if you're making some social media post about some big opinion you have that is just going to get you into trouble, just be aware that like maybe you're going to get in trouble with it. Doesn't mean you don't have to do it. Doesn't mean it's wrong. Doesn't mean what you're saying is not valid or anything, but it just means that you're disrupting your peace of mind. That's all I'm saying. So, this is kind of, and the moon's not in a safe position in Scorpio. So it's kind of a messed up situation for the moon. It's for a messed up situation for where we're at on a emotional and psychological level with all the kind of psychological planets, mind-based planets, which are moon, sun, and Mercury, all in water signs, and sun and Mercury are both in moon signs. So if the moon's in a vulnerable place, where we're at on a cognitive, mental, psychological, spiritual level is in a vulnerable place. So just be aware of that this is why it may not be the best time to communicate to the world, the whole world, what is happening. Of course, you can talk to people, definitely don't just like bottle up what's going on inside of you, but doesn't necessarily mean the whole world needs to know about it. The truth you're letting out could lead you into some trouble down the road. So use the truth wisely. This is something I talked to somebody about recently. It's like, what the truth is a tool. It's a tool. It's a tool that we can use. Of course, the truth can set you free, but it's also what sort of freedom are you looking for, right? The truth is just the truth. It's how you use it that's going to make it effective and not for whatever freedom you're looking for. So sometimes the truth is for yourself, but it may not be. It doesn't, just because maybe other people don't believe the same truth as you doesn't mean it's your job to convince them of that. If you know the truth, you know it, and that's what matters, right? So it may not be the best idea to use the truth to validate yourself, and I think that's what I meant. There could be very harsh and disruptive consequences and changes that force something on you or in your life and the circumstances of where you're at with the moon that you may not necessarily want. So sometimes we have to hold the truth for ourselves for the time being. Just because it's not right now the best time to say something doesn't mean it isn't later. And I think with the trine coming off the trine from Mercury, if we can overcome that impulse to do something that will get us into somewhere that may be more disruptive in our lives, we can figure out a way to make better use of it later. So share really with who you trust. Go back to places where you feel safe. Do your thing, make the decisions you need to make, but keep, whatever reasons you have to yourself. You don't need to justify or explain your every single move. If you want to do something, just do it. But you don't need to tell everybody why it is you did it, because you did it. You did it because you believe in it, and that should be enough. But sometimes you do need to explain yourself, but you also don't. Anyway, so that's kind of it for this week. I think the main point of this week is really to try and enjoy yourself. There's with that conjunction between Venus and Mars. I think you're going to want to enjoy yourself now before moving forward. So that's why I think it's if rather than kind of demeaning that, try to enjoy yourself and don't just turn something that's been really liberating for you into something that could bring greater unmanageability into your daily life. So that's it, everybody, for this week of the astrology. Next week is a little bit more of a bigger deal. For instance, we have Leo season, so rar, happy birthday, Leos. Mercury is also going to sextile Uranus, could be interesting for innovations, technologies. Venus will then ingress Virgo, lose dignity, but it's also the first planet out of Leo, and then Venus makes that opposition to Jupiter right away. So there could be something really interesting with relationships next week. And then we get the first Aquarius new moon. We're going to have another Aquarius new moon. Full moon. Aquarius full moon, not new moon. We're going to get a second Aquarius full moon this year. So Aquarius is where the blue moon's happening. And so that means there's a culmination in the Aquarius story. What's been going on in Aquarius in your chart? This is going to get really highlighted in the next two lunations. And then Mercury is going to trine Neptune. The mind's going to have this very immersive experience, I think, something to do with the cinema, maybe some sort of mind-bending, entering deep experience in some level. And then Mercury opposes Pluto. So that's what's up next week. So big times next week. I hope everybody can get a bit of a break overall. There are some really positive things to hold on to for now, I think, and deal with the hard stuff later. That would be my suggestion. But of course, you are the master of your own reality. All right, everyone. Thank you always for tuning in. I wish you all the best this week. Keep coming back. Like, comment, subscribe, share this with a friend if you think it's going to help you. And if you want a consultation, hit me up down below. All right. Bye.